Today's guest has interviewed over 2,000 successful people from a diverse range of industries and professions. These individuals include Fortune 500 CEOs, athletes, generals, politicians, astronauts, actors, musicians, authors, professors, billionaires, magicians, Nobel Prize winners, journalists, chefs, Olympic gold medalists, YouTube stars, TED speakers, designers, thought leaders, and even the current president of the United States.
You're fired.
And on today's show, the New York Times bestselling author Dan Schawbel is teaching us about the importance of building human connection in the digital world that we now live in.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrivetime Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing the New York Times best-selling author and the millennial career and workplace expert, Dan Schawbel, about the importance of human connection in a digital world. Dan, I'm honored to have you on the show, my man. How are you?
So happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me on your show.
I watch a lot of the Lewis Howes podcasts, and I was first introduced to your book, Back to Human, through the podcast, and I would just like to ask you, what first inspired you to write the book, Back to Human, How Great Leaders Create Connection in the Age of Isolation?
Multiple things happening at once. One is every book I write helps people get to the next phase of their career. So my life mission is to help people go from student to CEO. So Me 2.0 was college to first job, promote yourself as first job to management, and Back to Human is a leadership book. The other thing is I was interviewed for a documentary 2 years ago called The Revolution Generation, comes out next year. And I was asked what the biggest challenge is for people my age. I'm 35. And it was, I was talking about student loan crisis, world war, income inequality, climate change. And then in my head, I'm like, wait, what's affecting us on a daily basis? And it's our overuse and misuse of technology. And that's made us more isolated and lonely in the workplace and at home.
So I'd love for you to share, for the listeners out there who are not as familiar with your background, what was your path to becoming a best-selling author?
It's a very long path. I'm going to try and summarize this as quick as possible. I started work when I was 13, first internship in high school, 7 more internships in college, first business, sophomore year of college, doing website design and graphic design for local businesses in Newton, Massachusetts. Graduated, spent 3.5 years at a company called EMC, now EMC Dell, very big Fortune 200 company. And I went from product marketing to online marketing, and I created the first ever social media position based on what I was doing outside of work. I was very early on in personal branding. I mean, I owned personalbranding.com, and I had personal branding blog. I was writing 12 articles a week, started a magazine called Personal Branding Magazine. I was doing a lot of different things around personal branding, and then Fast Company profiled me. My company had no idea what I was doing outside of work until that moment because it mentioned that I was a full-time employee, and that's how I was able to create the first social media position in a big company. And then that inspired the first book, Me 2.0, which is the first book on how to use social media to build your career. And then from there, I launched a company called Millennial Branding, wrote another book called Promote Yourself, started another company called WorkplaceTrends.com. That was acquired, and then now it's Back to Human.
You are a guy who, if you read any of your books, you're a person who's very intentional about leading with data. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you always use facts and data to support what you're saying instead of just saying, Dan thinks this is the idea. Can you explain why you use facts and data on such an intentional basis?
Yeah, it's very intentional, and I have a real attachment to numbers because early in my career, when I was blogging, people were like, oh, what do you know? Like, how do you know that's true? And I would always cite other people's research. And so I realized that, wow, like research and data can combat ageism. And so I always knew that was important. And then in 2012, I launched my very first study where I analyzed 4 million millennial Facebook profiles. And I launched the study in the media, it went viral. It was a big deal back then. And then I just got hooked on it. I almost feel that I'm an archaeologist trying to find the next dinosaur bone, but instead I'm uncovering labor workplace data that it's going to help people better prepare for the future of work and companies to create better, healthier workplaces so people can be healthy and happy and thrive. And so I've done 45 studies interviewing over 90,000 people in 20 countries. So it's been 6 years of that. And this is my sweet spot. It's what I enjoy. So I hope to do more next year and in the future.
I've heard you say that whether you're on a subway or whether you're at the workplace, people in the workplace are having lunch alone. You feel like you're around so many people, but yet around not anybody at the same time because people are physically there, but they are not there mentally, emotionally, or spiritually there. Dan, can you break down what you mean by this?
Yeah, so whether you're in the subway, whether you're in a corporate office, I had lunch alone, so I plead guilty. Wherever you are, people are physically there, but people are looking down at devices more so now than they're looking at people. And up to half of someone's workday is consumed using technology. We found that in the Virgin Pulse study I did for the book of over 2,000 people globally. And so as more and more of our time is spent looking at devices, it really hurts our soft skills and it prevents us from establishing the relationships we need to be successful at work through collaboration and at home to establish a relationship we need to be human and to survive, because we need each other to function and operate and be happy.
In your book, Back to Human, you create connections in the age of isolation. You decided to name part 1 of the book as Master Self-Connection. What is this portion of the book all about?
Yeah, part 1 is really a focus on yourself, right? And the theory, especially in the chapter 1, which is focus on fulfillment, is you need to be able to get your head straight. You need to know what you want out of life, what your vision is, what your values are, and your purpose is. Because once you do that, you can be a role model to others, and others can look up to you, and then you'll know how to help them figure out their own life and help them become more fulfilled. If you're talking to people and you don't know really what you want to do, you feel lost and isolated, then you're not going to be as effective in helping them, because in your head, you're always thinking about, okay, I'm alone. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. So it's going to be less effective. But if you're happy, people will feel your positive energy. And so through being more productive, taking care of yourself, I think all of those things really add up to being a healthier, happier human. And then you radiate onto other people. So your positivity will travel throughout your organization.
Dan, Dr. Z here. On your website, you talked about being a serial entrepreneur. What are some of are all your businesses pretty the same, or have you done anything outside of what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, well, Millennial Branding originally was a personal branding coaching company. And then the second iteration was really focused on helping companies better sell to or hire and manage people my age. But really everything is workplace focused now, because that's where I want to make the biggest impact. I had a decision back in the day of, hey, do I, in terms of personal branding, do I want to get into more marketing or human capital? And marketing, to me, I even though I like those skills, I wanted to apply those skills into HR, because
Sure.
I knew that with HR, I could really affect someone's life and success. And to me, that I could gravitate more to, because that would give me a sense of purpose.
I'm fascinated by one of those original studies you did with 4 million millennials Facebook pages that you deep dived into and kind of looked at. What are some takeaways from that study that you could share with our audience right now?
So this is a long time ago.
I know, but it's
but the big thing that I remember, because when I release a study, I have to talk about it so many times, but it's usually talking about the core finding, and the finding on that one was we had an average of 700 friends on Facebook, 16 of which are coworkers. So the idea is, wow, we have to be smarter about who we add and the boundaries we create, because there was stories back then of people posting how much they hated their manager on Facebook and then getting fired in the comments section by their manager.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I would encourage everybody out there, if you've yet to check out this book, Back to Human, it's going to be a game changer for somebody out there. Part 2 of your book is called Create Team Connection. On a very practical level, I'd love for you to break down what this portion of the book is all about.
Yeah, we're all in teams right now. In the study I did for my last book, Promote Yourself, we asked managers what are the what are the things you're looking for when promoting, and teamwork was in the top 3. Positive attitude was another, and the ability to prioritize work. So really it's about, we're all in teams now. We have to be able to function a team. People look different than they ever did, right? We have a more diverse workplace than ever before. When I interviewed 100 top young leaders for this book through the top companies in the world, I didn't go in saying, I need, percentage being African-American, a percentage being women. It just naturally happened, which tells me we're at a different place now where the next generation of leaders is more diverse. We have to work in diverse teams and embrace diverse people and ideas. I think that to me is extremely important. And then there's another chapter on recognition. I think people are not willing to wait a whole year for an annual performance review. They want to be acknowledged on a regular basis. There's all, technology has brought along instant gratification. No one wants to wait to know if they're doing a good job. They don't want to be surprised after a year with not getting a promotion. So I think giving feedback and getting in the habit of recognizing people for good behavior is helpful, because then it creates a culture of kindness and happiness and support that we all need.
Hey, Dan, this is Paul Hood CPAs. I tell you, sitting here listening to you, I'm taking notes. And one of the things that it made me think of, I like to read a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jack Welch, former CEO.
I've interviewed him, actually, and his wife.
Oh, awesome. Well, he says in his book, Winning, before leadership, your job is to grow yourself. And after leadership, your job is to grow others. Your words here, and I haven't read your book. I'm going to get it, and I'm excited to read it. But do you think that, basically, do you agree with that comment? Does that fit in with the direction of your series of books?
I would say for this book, you kind of have to do both at the same time, right? So I think you can be a leader while being a good influence on those around you. And the real core to this book is the 4 employee engagement factors: trust, belonging, purpose, and happiness. I think as a leader, if you focus on those 4, you can layer technology over it. You can do anything you want over those 4, but those are the 4 critical components, because that's why people actually come to work. And if you look at all 3 books, the first 2 books were really about the work you do. And this is the first book where I'm really saying, okay, it matters who you work with. The work you do and who you work with, that is work. You could be working in different locations at home. Regardless of the setup, if you love the work you do and you have people who are supporting your ambitions, you're not leaving anytime soon, right? And I think that what I've recognized in the past few weeks is that if you love the work you do, you try to find real purpose in it, but you're in a toxic work environment where people don't want you to succeed, where you'll never get a promotion, where they kind of want to push you out, you'll just never succeed there. It's going to be awful for you. It doesn't matter how much you love what you do. So I think the people you work with is actually more important than what the work you do. I'm fully convinced on that, because if you have a support system around you, a great leader or great teammates that want you to be successful and support you, then you'll figure out that you'll make your job better. They'll let you work on projects that might be outside of your spectrum and duties. You might be able to move around the organization and do something more of what you love. So I think who you work with is the most important. It's like the age-old saying, people don't leave companies, they leave managers.
Gotcha.
Dan, I have a hot question for you. Then Z wants to one-up me with a better question here. You, in chapter 7 of your book, you titled that chapter, Hire for Personality. What do you mean by this?
Hire for personality and train for skill. I think hard skills over the next coming years are going to be all automated at some level. I think, all these programmers and engineers are making so much money right now. Some of the engineers actually have Hollywood agents in California because they command such high salaries, higher than some of these Hollywood stars. But I think what's going to play out is that all this technology and machine learning and artificial intelligence are going to continue to get superior and learn and get better and more efficient. And that'll end up replacing a lot of these hard skills. They'll get that smart. So what is left? What is left is our soft skills. And in this case, natural curiosity, creativity, communication skills, ability to work and manage in a team. Having a positive attitude, I think, is like the most important thing. That's how I got my job when I graduate, because I was competing against the director of Polaroid, and I was hired because I was so passionate about getting a job there. So if someone has a positive attitude, it's a predictor that when they get that job, they'll work that much harder. And so I think hire for personality is so important, because these are the people you're going to be working with, and if they're not bearable, if they aren't genuinely curious and supportive and have a positive attitude, then they're going to leave anyways because they're just not going to fit in, and it's going to hurt everyone else.
Okay, Dan, on your website, you talk about doing over 2,000 interviews with celebrities or well-known people. Do a few of those stick out or very memorable ones? Part A of the question. And then part B is, it shows on here that you interviewed Donald Trump. Now, we're not a political show. We're an entrepreneur show. But I got to hear about where was he in his career and how that went, how that happened. And you got to give me a little something on that. Come on. So a couple that stood out. And then how was with President Trump? How'd that go?
Yeah, Trump was 2011. I like the stories of getting to these people more than the actual interviews sometimes. And that was one of them where I set out many, many years before to interview him. And I thought, okay, well, a lot of people probably want to interview him. How do I go about it a long-term way? And so I interviewed his daughter, Ivanka, 10 years ago or so. I interviewed Larry King. I interviewed Robert Kiyosaki. I looked at and examined all the people he cared most about in his life or the people who he associated with, and I interviewed them to build the story up of why I should interview him.
Aha.
So it was a long-term story of how I got him, and then it was about 12 minutes on the phone. And, I was pretty naive at that point. It was what it was, but, his answers aren't even that bad. It was really about entrepreneurship, and the thing that I remember was the last question about, who does he hire? Just like we're talking about hire for personality, it's very relevant. Is he doesn't want to see a resume where people are job hopping, because that's an indicator that they're not going to stay with him very long. And I thought that's legitimate.
Yeah,
it's sort of an old school mentality because people are shifting jobs a little bit more regularly now. But I thought that was fair. I thought that was a great answer. And then Hulk Hogan was a great story.
Oh, wow.
Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I interviewed a man multimillionaire by the name of Ryan Blair. And back in the day, Forbes had a partnership with Yahoo. And that interview, out of all of my interviews, went on the homepage of Yahoo, which is the number one spot on the internet back then to be in. And it got, 40 million page views. And I got a call from him saying, hey, this really impacted me. It changed my life. And this is someone who's probably worth a few $100 million. So that says a lot about the impact of that publicity. And I looked at his website. Oh, he's like, what can I do for you? I looked at his website. It said that Hulk Hogan was a spokesperson. I was like, I'd love to interview Hulk. And so it was the process of getting the interview and then just realizing how to win people over quickly. So, and I did the same thing with Trump and Hogan was, you talk about a memory of when you saw them speak or on TV, or in this case for Hulk Hogan, I saw him battle Andre the Giant when I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old in Worcester, Massachusetts, and it meant a lot to me. And so it won him over. He was by the pool in Florida at his Florida estate, and he was just very relaxed. And he was coming up with questions for me almost, right? He was talking about the divorce, things that I would never ask him. I don't ask about people's personal lives to that extent. And so I thought it was just really great because it was like talking to a friend.
That's awesome.
Dan,
Thank you.
my final question I have here for you is your book, your new book that's out there, Back to Human. Our listeners tend to buy books. They love to buy books. We have entrepreneurs tend to consume more books than the average human. Why should everybody go out there and check out a copy of your book, Back to Human?
I think it prepares you for where we're going in our world. The main message is let technology be a bridge to human connection, not a barrier. So always remember that despite all the technology, the human connection is important if you want to retain coworkers and collaborate more effective and really just be happy in today's world. Let technology remove the work you don't want to do and let it get you to physical places where you can interact with the people that will matter most to you now and in the future.
Dan, I appreciate you for being on the show. I know you have a lot of things to do today. Thank you for investing your time into our listeners, and I hope you have a blessed and wonderful rest of this month and a great 2019.
You too. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thrive Nation, as always, we'd like to end each and every show with a boom. But before we go to the boom, I want to encourage you to check out thrivetimeshow.com. That's thrivetimeshow.com, where you can download free ebook versions of the Start Here Amazon best-selling book that I have written just for you. It is sort of the spine of the Thrivetime Show, business coaching systems and processes. You can download that ebook version absolutely for free at thrivetimeshow.com. You can also download the Boom Book for free at thrivetimeshow.com. Check it out today at thrivetimeshow.com. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom! If you are like most humans that I know, when you see two gas stations and one sells gas for a little bit less and they're next to each other, you might go for the one that sells gas for less money. It makes sense. You know, every little bit can help.
You know, I don't really agree with that. I like to spend as much money as I possibly can on fossil fuels. It's just something I'm into, you know?
But here's what's weird, though. Sometimes we save a few pennies here and there and ignore opportunities to save huge money. I'm talking about life-changing money. If you switch today, as an example, to MediShare for your health care, it could be a massive savings for you and your family. The typical savings for a family is about $500 a month. I repeat, $500 a month.
Okay, I have a quick question. So when you said you could save like $500 a month, I mean, are you talking about actually being able to save $500 a month?
Yes, that's why I said the number. You could actually save $500 a month. Just think about that for a second. What would you do with all that extra money? Thrivers, you could be buying a flat screen every single month. That's 12 flat screens a year, $6,000 per year, or 12 flat screens per year.
Well, I have been trying to save up for 12 flat screens, and this seems to be the most reasonable, prudent way to do it.
And yes, people love it. They love it because it works. It's believers who share each other's health care costs. And now with over 400,000 people, a.k.a. members of MediShare, again, with over 400,000 members, there's proof it works. And it's growing like crazy. It would be like having a 7-foot-tall third grader in your family. It's like growing like a weed. It is taking off. Find out how much you can save and why MediShare is so popular. Go to medishare.com/clay. That's MediShare, MEDI share.com/clay. Or call them at 844-25-SHARE for more info. That's 844-25-SHARE.